Welcome to the SUSECON Digital session, Hands-on Lab 1057, What's New in SLE 15 SP1. My name is Neil Bornstein. I'm a sales engineer in the southeastern United States. In this session, we'll have 5 labs covering various aspects of SLE 15 SP1. First, building and migrating systems, either building from scratch or migrating from an existing OpenSUSE Leap system. The second lab is about the Firewall D, and all the tools around configuring the firewall. The third lab is discussing SALT and how to use it to configure Nginx Web Server and Crony Time Server and Client. The fourth lab is covering the repository management tool and how to configure that. And then the fifth is about software management. If you'd like a copy of the lab instructions, you can get them from my Git repository at this URL. And let's get started. We'll begin the first lab, which is to build a SLE 15 SP1 system. So you can see I have a VM ready to go, so I'm going to start it up. And I want to do an installation. I'm just going to set the host name to be SLE 15 SP1, and I might change the video mode just to make it a little bit, easier to read. So we'll make it 1280 by 960. That sounds good. And hit enter. So it's going to boot from the installation media, and in SLE 15 SP1 there's a couple things that will happen automatically. One is that if I'm operating in an environment that is connected to the internet, it will actually go out and look for updates to the installer media itself. In this case, I am disconnected, so it'll skip over that step very gracefully. And then as soon as that is ready to go, then we'll see the first screen of the installer. Okay, so now we're ready to go with the installation. I think I'm going to resize this to fit the VM. There we go. So the first thing you'll see is that there are multiple products installable from the SLE 15 SP1 installer. Obviously there's the SLES server itself, there's SLE for high performance computing, there's SLE for real time, there's SLES for SAP, there's SLED, the desktop product, SUSE Manager Server, SUSE Manager Proxy, and the SUSE Manager Retail Branch Server. And there'll be sessions about all of these during SUSECON Digital, so you can learn more about any of these you wish to. But for right now, we'll just go ahead with the installation. I'm going to install SLES, the server, and we'll click Next. So obviously we have to agree to the license agreement. Agree and click Next. Then we come to the registration page. Now, I'm using an Rmt server in my local network environment since I'm not connected to the internet. Don't worry if you don't know much about Rmt yet. We'll actually talk about that later in terms of how to set it up. You could, of course, also do this if you have a registration code using direct connection to Scc. But again, right now I'm going to use Rmt in my local environment. And I have to type in the IP address because I don't have name resolution set up. So for me, that's 192.168.150.214. And click Next. Now, because this is my own Rmt server and I've used a self-signed certificate, this is just a confirmation that do I trust this certificate? Yeah, I do, because I know where it came from. So I'll click Trust and Import. and then it'll go out and query all the products that are available on that RMT server. And this is just saying, in addition to the products, we also have updates out there, and do we want to automatically install the latest updates during our installation? Yes, we do. Here's the list of products that are available. Now I'm going to check this hide development versions box in a second, or rather uncheck it. But right now you see what we get with the server product is the base system module. That's there for every product that we install. That is, as the name implies, that's the base system. That's everything. And if you click on an individual item, you can see the details in the box at the bottom. That tells you what's included in it. We also want the server applications module, so basic server functionality. We want one more thing, and I'll just uncheck the hide development versions, and this will show me the items that are in bold letters are the products that are currently mirrored to my RMT server. So you may see something different here. But because of some of the work we're doing later on in the lab, I want to include the desktop applications module as well. And again, by clicking that, checking that box, it's now included, and we can see the details. It's just a basic set of desktop functionality. And you can also see in the text down here, this is included in your subscription. This is not an add-on that will cause you to have to buy a separate subscription. An example of that might be the workstation extension, right? If you look at the workstation extension up here, it's not available on my RMT, but it also requires a separate subscription. So I'll click Next. Now it's going to communicate with the RMT server, make sure everything's good there, and then give me a few more options to continue the installation. So if there's any additional add-on products that have separate media or a separate installation source, I could add them here. I'm not going to, so we'll click Next. As far as the system role, SLES with GNOME is fine for this system. I want a desktop environment, but I don't need any of the other tools like virtualization. So I'm going to click Next. The partitioning scheme, I'm going to take the default here. I don't care. It's a fairly small system. I'm just going to do a 10 gig system and use it all. All right, so we have to pick a time zone. Well, this was developed for SUSECON, which was to be in Dublin, so I'll just go ahead and pick Ireland for my time zone and click Next. And then a user. I will use Geeko as my user, and I'll give it a safe and hard to guess password, which I'll also use for the system administrator, and click Next. And yes, I really want to use Linux as my password, so we'll click yes there. Everything else here should take the defaults. We do want the firewall to be started up automatically because we're going to work with that in the next lab. And we'll go ahead and click Install and confirm that we really do want to install. Yes, we do. And then we wait. And that installation is done. So I'll start it up again and make sure we boot from the hard drive to SLES 15 SP1. And we're done. In the next section, we'll see how to migrate an OpenSUSE Leap system to SLE 15. So I've got an OpenSUSE VM over here. We'll go ahead and start that up. And I'm going to open up the console just so we can see how that goes. And once it's ready to go, I will SSH to it as root. Okay, ready to go. I don't need this console anymore, so we'll just SSH in there. Password is Linux, like everywhere else. So the first thing we need to do is let's just double check what kind of system this is. So I can cat etc os release and see that it is LEAP 15.1. And in order to do the migration from LEAP to SLE, I need to use SUSE Connect. So the first thing I'm going to do is zipper in SUSE Connect. SUSE Connect is available in the OpenSUSE LEAP repositories. So we'll give this a second to refresh the repos and install the package. Okay, SUSE Connect is installed. The next step we're going to take is to remove packages that might produce a file conflict during the migration. This may or may not be strictly necessary, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I'm just removing the YaST2 branding package for OpenSUSE. Okay, not installed. Make sure I spelled it right. Nope, you have to have an uppercase here. Still not installed. All right, we're fine there. So the next thing we want to do is copy the RMT root certificate, and so that will basically prevent errors as we are doing these actions from the command line. So I've got to. The easiest thing I could do is copy from my document. I don't have it here locally, so I'm having to type it. And that's all right. And if I've typed everything correctly, that should just work. There we go. Okay, so now we have the RMT root CA configured. And now we have to install those certificates by running update CA certificates. Okay. Now we can start by registering with the RMT server. And if you've used SUSE Connect before, you know that it can connect directly to SUSE Customer Center or to your RMT server. So the easiest way right now, since I've got an RMT, is just to specify the IP address of the RMT server and the product. So because this is a new registration, it doesn't know what kind of system it's going to be. I have to tell it it's a SLES 15.1 x86 64. So it's being registered. Okay, successfully registered. Now we need to see what repos are out there. So I'm going to do a zipper LR that'll show me a list of all the repositories that are configured. And just to make this easier, let's do this. So I can see there are the ones we just added by registering are the SLE product repos, but everything from 7 to 17 comes from OpenSUSE, and I want to remove all of those. So zipper RR, and I can do them all at once using a little bash magic here. So 7 through 17, I want to remove all of those. And that is done. Now, in order to install, we need more than just the base product repos. We also need additional modules. So what I'm going to do is SUSE Connect will show me all available extensions. So this will show me everything that's available on this RMT server. And it will also show me the shortcuts for installing these packages. So, for example, if I want to install the base system module, I can find that up here in my list. There's base system, and it gives me the command right here. So it's real easy to copy and paste that and just add it. And I'm also going to do the desktop applications module. So let's find that right here. Again, copy and paste. So that's the same error we saw before. I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. Now we have all the modules added that we need. So the next step will be to migrate those packages that are already installed to the new repositories. So packages will probably stay as they are, but we need to change their vendor to be SLE. So I'm going to do a distribution upgrade, and we'll do dupe force resolution. And we may get a question. This looks like everything is good. It's telling me that everything is moving from OpenSUSE to SUSE as the vendor. In this next section, we'll look at using AutoYaST to clone and edit the configuration of new systems. I'm going to go into my SLES 15 system that we built earlier and log in. And the first thing is that the AutoYaST configuration is done with a YaST module. So if you've not already installed the AutoYaST YaST module, you'll have to do that first. I've already done that here, so I can just go straight into YaST and start doing some configuration. So here's YaST. I have to be root, of course, to do that. And I can go into miscellaneous and work with the auto installation cloning system. That's the AutoYaST section of YaST. So the first thing it will do is create a new AutoYaST profile, and this will take a couple of minutes. My AutoYaST profile has been built, so I can take a look at that file by opening it up in a terminal. The file is placed in root's home directory, and it's called autoinst.xml. So let's take a look at it. As you can see, it's an XML file. If you feel like editing XML, you certainly can, but it can get complicated, and we have tools as part of YaST to make this a little bit easier. So what we'll do is go back into YaST and click on Auto Installation Configuration. And this will give us the opportunity to open up that file and make changes to it. So I'm opening it up. There it is. And again, it'll take a second to load. Okay, that's loaded, so now we can start making changes to it. The first thing I want to do is look at the disk. So there's a tool called Partition that does disk partition editing. You can see my disk, dev VDA, and I want to go and make one change, which is this particular machine was built with a 10 gig partition to be run as a VM. Well, in real life, I might want to size the disk differently, but still use this AutoYaST file to build it. So I can simply change the size to max rather than specifying a 10 gig partition. And click Finish. So that was easy. Another change I might want to make is change where this system is located. You remember when we first built it, it was going to be for SUSECON in Ireland. Well, unfortunately, SUSECON's gone digital, so we're not in Ireland anymore. So I can go into System, Date and Time, and change my clock. Let's go with where I am, which is in the US in Eastern Time. So that's that. So when I do this, it will it'll change that auto installation file so that we can build systems in US East. Other things I can do are, for example, security and users. I can do user and group management, so I could add a new user here if I wish to, or a new group. I'm not going to do that here, but that's where I would do it. And then finally, I could make changes to other things that happen using pre and post installation scripts. So that's under miscellaneous, and it's this section called script CUSUS, and I could here configure my pre-installation, post-installation, chroot, init, and post-partitioning scripts. Again, I don't have any to do right now, but that's where I would do it. And then finally, I can save out those changes. I'll do a save as, and I will go back in the same directory and create a new file. I'll call it autoinst2.xml. And again, this will take a little time to run, but when it is done, you'll see an XML file that then I can look at. autoinst2.xml, and you'll see the changes that I made will apply right there. Now, when this changes are all done, you have an AutoYaST file, and what you can do with it is on the installer in the boot parameters where you set the host name, you can set AutoYaST equals and then the location of this auto install file on a network accessible location like a web or FTP server. And that is how you configure AutoYaST. This lab will begin with a discussion of the firewall. So in SLE 15, we replaced SUSE Firewall with Firewall D, which is a more globally available package. So I can go into YaST and I can search for firewall. And there it is. And the first time you do this, it will ask you to install the Firewall Config package. I've already installed it, so here we go. Now, there's a couple things that will happen here. Oops, opened it twice. Firewall D allows you to configure the firewall in the current session as well as permanently. So if I look at my zones, I have predefined zones that allow access for particular ports and services according to what network zone we're in. Right now, because I have not done this firewall configuration yet, I'm going to try and SSH into my SLE 15 SP1 VM, and it's telling me no route to host. It's actually because that port is blocked. Port 22 is blocked by the firewall. So let's open up the port. So over here in the known services, I'm going to find SSH. There it is. And I'm going to click on Add. And then I'll click Accept. So this has made the change so that now I can SSH into that VM. Port 22 is open and I have full access. Now everything you can do from YaST you can also do from the command line. So here I am, I'm logged in as root to SLE 15 SP1. Let's explore the command line a little bit. So the first thing is firewall-cmd. We're going to get a list of all the zones that are defined, and this will match that list that we saw in YaST. I can also do firewall-cmd list all to show me all configurations for the current zone, or excuse me, for the default zone. So you can see right now services, the DHCP v6 client and SSH are allowed for the default zone, which is the public zone. I can also do the same command but only look at one particular zone. For example, let's look at the trusted zone. And here you might allow a lot more permissions than you would in the public zone. So this was trusted. We can also do that same thing with public, and that way you can compare and contrast. Note that the SSH we did ourselves for the public zone. So maybe something else we can do is open up the HTTP port to the public zone. So we can do firewall cmd zone equals public, add service equal or add service HTTP, and we'll also add HTTPS. And of course it helps if you type it correctly. There we go. And now I can go back and list my configuration for the public zone, and we'll see that now we have the web ports open as well. Now these again have made these changes for my current session. If I were to reboot right now, all this would go away. So we can do two things. We can do the same command, and let me just do it here, and make it permanent right here. Now that change is permanent, and then I can go ahead and reload all the settings from the files on disk and make and see what my permanent configuration looks like. And again, I can go back and do my list all. and you see all the changes we made are now permanent. In this lab, we will use SALT to configure several services on each of the systems in our lab. Now, I've already installed the SALT master on our Rmt server. So we'll need to just install it, we'll just need to install the SALT minion on our other two systems. Additionally, I've already edited my etc hosts file and copied it to each of my systems so that we have consistent names for each of the systems in our environment. So, as I said, the Rmt server already has the SALT master installed, as well as a SALT minion. I'm going to go to our original SLE 15SP1 system that we installed from scratch and zipper in the SALT minion. And I will take all those options, and I'm going to do the same thing over here on the LEAP system that we converted to SLE 15. So I'm taking those along with all dependencies. And as soon as that is all done installing, I can enable and start the SALT minion. And I'll do that right now with systemctl enable -- now salt -minion. And I'll do that on my other system as well. Now, what that's done is that's enabled the minion as well as starting it now. So I should be able to go onto my Rmt server, which is my SALT master, and use the salt key command to see what systems have requested to connect. So far, and this takes a little time, so far I see a couple of unaccepted keys. Let me do it again and see if my third system is there. There it is. So I've got 3 keys all waiting to be accepted. So I can type salt key -A to accept all those. And it'll just ask me to confirm, and yes, I will confirm. Now they're all available for me to use. And I can test those systems by using the salt command itself with the star to target all my systems, and then the command is test.ping. Okay, they all return true, so that's good. That means they're all up and running. And the last thing I want to do is on my SALT master, I want to create a file server so that I can copy files from this SALT master out to my SALT minions. So to do that, I will edit the file etc salt master. And you should see a file roots already here commented out. I'm going to remove those comments because I want to use this as my file server. And I will save that. And I can go and look and just make sure that that is there. Serve salt. There are some files there already. I've copied those in previously so that I can use them. So the first thing we'll look at is using salt to configure the Nginx web server, which ships with SLE 15. So I'm going to look at the file serve salt web server nginx.sls. .sls files are salt states. So you can see the salt state is defined here. There's a couple of things that it'll do. It'll ensure that the package Nginx is installed. It'll ensure that the Nginx service is both enabled and running, and it will reload it automatically if a particular file changes. And we'll look at that file in a second. It will also make that file, make another file, the index file, a managed file using the web server, salt file server. And it will also do the configuration file for Nginx, all from that managed file server on the salt server, the salt master. So how do we use this? Quite simply, we use the salt command to apply the state. So I'm going to do salt SLE 15SP1. That's my host name, and I'm putting the star on the end so I don't have to use the fully qualified host name. I'm going to say state.apply, and then I'm going to say what state to apply. I'm going to use webserver.nginx, which was what was defined in the salt state we just looked at. Now, the first time you do this, it may take a little while because it's actually having to install the Nginx web server and enable it and start it. And we see now that it's done. Everything succeeded in the salt state. So I can go over to my SLE 15 system and use the built-in tools, systemctl status nginx. And there we can see it's active and it's running. So I can even take a look at my web browser. And go to my web server. And there it is. It works, a web server with a salt state. So we just use a salt state to install a web server on a particular system. Now, the next thing we're going to do is use a salt state to configure the cronny network time protocol server and client. So first of all, let's take a look at the salt state that will manage that. So again, just like with the Nginx server, it's going to start by making sure the cronny package is installed, make sure the service cronny-d is enabled and running, and reload it if the configuration file changes, and then make the configuration file managed by salt. So quite simple, and we can apply this much the same way we did the web server. One thing I'll do differently here though is I'll go ahead and apply it to all the systems in my environment. So again, the star means everything. So the Rmt server itself, the LEAP system that we converted to SLE, and the SLE 15 system. I'm actually going to change my mind here. I'm going to do this separately. I don't want to mess with the Rmt server because that's my NTP server. So I was about to make a big mistake there, and I don't want to do that. So let me do it this way. SLE 15 SP1 star state.apply cronny.ntp. And then maybe when that's done, I'll also do it to my LEAP system. So again, it may take a little while because it's installing the cronny package, enabling it, starting it up with the configuration file. Okay, that's done, and again I see that it succeeded. No failures there. So I'm going to go over here to my SLE 15 SP1 system. I'm going to just take a look at the cronny conf file. And this is a file that was created by the Rmt server. And I can do some other commands like cronny c sources, and it should tell me what my sources are. The last step in this lab is to understand high states. Essentially, the high state is a way of applying multiple states at once. So I'm going to look at the high state defined in top.sls. And basically, it's going to say, all right, we're going to apply these two states. And I'm going to go ahead and change what they include here, just to be consistent. SLE15 SP1 star, I'm going to configure cronny. SLE15 SP1 star, I'm going to configure Nginx. So I've done that. Now, what I first want to do is revert the changes we made previously. So on my previous systems, I did SLE15 SP1 star state.apply, and I want to apply another state that we have defined that says no Nginx installed. So this will remove Nginx, disable it, and stop it from running. So I can go back to my web server, my web browser, and try and hit that page, and obviously it would not be there anymore. And I'm going to do the same thing with cronny. And we'll just confirm that those are not running when I'm done with this. So give me a second here for this to run. Okay, it's run successfully. I go back here to my server, and it tells me Nginx is inactive. It's dead, right? So it's not going to run anymore. And I can do the same thing with my other state, which is cronny.noNTP. So again, that'll take a moment to revert. Again, successful. And again, I can go back here and take a look at my cronny C sources, no daemon running, and the file has been converted back to the original before any changes were made. So now I can apply all of these at once using my high state. So again, salt SLE15 SP1 state.high state. So it just basically will apply everything that's in that top state file. In this lab, we'll experiment a little bit with the Rmt server. Rmt, again, is the repository management tool, which in SLE15 replaces SMT, the subscription management tool. It's been rewritten. It's a lot lighter weight. It uses Nginx rather than Apache and some other tools internally, just to be simpler. It also uses systemd services and timers. So what we'll do first of all is we're already connected to the Rmt server here, and we'll just do a little bit of checking. We can look at systemctl status Rmt server sync timer. So there's a timer that's automatically created, and there's a couple of them that are created. One is the timer that automatically synchronizes the server to SUSE Customer Center, and then there's another one that automatically mirrors the repositories from SUSE Customer Center. So you can see right here, the Rmt sync timer was first loaded a while ago, and it is active and waiting as of 34 minutes. It's going to trigger again automatically in 8 hours. So again, that will synchronize with SUSE Customer Center so we know what channels are available to us. The second timer is the mirror timer. So that runs after the sync timer, so in this case in about 11 hours. and that will automatically mirror all those repositories that we have access to and that we've configured to use. So let's take another look at a couple other things. We'll look at the services themselves. So there's an Rmt Server service. There's an Rmt Server sync service. And there's an Rmt Server mirror service. And of course there's the Nginx service. I'll go ahead and add that in here just for good measure. So we can see here the Rmt API server is running. We can see that the synchronized service is not running. That'll be triggered by that timer. The mirror service, similarly, is not running. It will also be triggered by a timer. And then finally, Nginx is already running now. So those are the services that are involved with the Rmt server. Now you can ask, okay, how do I configure Rmt? Well, there's a couple of ways. First thing is the Rmt CLI command. And you can just run Rmt CLI without any parameters and see a list of the various things that you can do. One thing that you can do is get a list of all the products that are currently available with Rmt CLI products list. And this is probably going to be hard to read, so I'm going to go ahead and blow up my window here. There you go. So you can see I've got 4 products mirrored to this Rmt server. Well, what if I want to see all the products that I have available to me? I just do list all. And this will take a little while. This is actually going to communicate out with SUSE Customer Center. And of course, with everything, it helps if you type the command correctly. And you'll see a long list of products, as well as do I want to mirror them or not. And of course, this includes all the different architectures, all the different products and different versions. Similarly, I can list repos. And of course, there's an all list for repos as well. The final exercise in this hands-on lab, we'll take a look at software management in SLE 15 SP1. With SLE 15, we added the ability to search across repositories when a package is not found in a repository that is already associated with a system. So, for example, if I want to use the Objective-C programming language, I don't currently have that anywhere in my repositories that are assigned to this system. So when I do a search for it, it's going to tell me no matching items found. However, now it's going to give me the option to use zipper search packages, which will search across all SUSE repositories using the SUSE Customer Center APIs. So if I do that search, say yes, it'll tell me exactly where I can find that package. It's in the Development Tools module, and it'll even give me the command I need to run in order to subscribe to that module, which in this case is a free module that's already included with your SLES subscription. So I could run that SUSE Connect command to subscribe to that module and then install the package directly from there. In addition to the command line tool through Zipper, you can also use the Scc Web Interface. So right here I can see by going to scc.suse.com/packages, I can then drill down and find various things. So if I'm using SLES 15 SP1 for x86-64, and I want to find the Objective-C package, I can just click on a search right here, and it'll give me the same basic information. Again, GCC Objective-C, here's the version, here's the license, and here's the module in which it is contained. And it'll give me the same sort of information about how to install that package. So thank you for attending this hands-on lab on what's new in SLE 15 SP1. Please feel free, if you have any questions, to contact me via the chat within SUSECON Digital, or you can email me at nbornstein@suse.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.